Guarani, specifically the primary variety known as Paraguayan Guarani, is an indigenous language of South America that belongs to the Tupi-Guarani family of the Tupian languages. It is one of the official languages of Paraguay, where it is spoken by the majority of the population, and where half of the rural population is monolingual. It is spoken by communities in neighboring countries, including parts of northeastern Argentina, southeastern Bolivia and southwestern Brazil, and is a second official language of the Argentine province of Corrientes since 2004. It is also an official language of Mercosur. Guarani is one of the most widely spoken indigenous languages of the Americas and the only one whose speakers include a large proportion of non-indigenous people. This is an interesting anomaly in the Americas, where language shift towards European colonial languages has otherwise been a nearly universal cultural and identity marker of mestizos, and also of culturally assimilated, upwardly mobile Amerindian people. Jesuit priest Antonio Ruiz de Montoya, who in 1639 published the first written grammar of Guarani in a book called Tesoro de la Lengua Guarani, described it as a language so copious and elegant that it can compete with the most famous. The name Guarani is generally used for the official language of Paraguay. However, this is part of a dialect chain, most of whose components are also often called Guarani. See Guarani Dialects History. The persistence of Guarani is, contrary to popular belief, not exclusively, or even primarily, due to the influence of the Jesuits in Paraguay. While Guarani was, indeed, the only language spoken in the expansive missionary territories, Paraguayan Guarani has its roots outside of the Jesuit traductions. Modern scholarship has shown that Guarani was always the primary language of colonial Paraguay, both inside and outside the reductions. Following the expulsion of the Jesuits in the 18th century, the residents of the reductions gradually migrated north and west towards Asunción, a demographic shift that brought about a decidedly one-sided shift away from the Jesuit dialect that the missionaries had curated in the southern and eastern territories of the colony. By and large, the Guarani of the Jesuits shied away from direct phonological loans from Spanish. Instead, the missionaries relied on the agglutinative nature of the language to formulate calque terms from native morphemes. This process often led the Jesuits to employ complicated, highly synthetic terms to convey Western concepts. By contrast, the Guarani spoken outside of the missions was characterized by a free, unregulated flow of Hispanicisms. Frequently, Spanish words and phrases were simply incorporated into Guarani with minimal phonological adaptation. A good example of this phenomenon is found in the word communion. The Jesuits, using their agglutinative strategy, rendered this word to para harbor, a calque based on the word tapa, meaning God. In modern Paraguayan Guarani, the same word is rendered comuno. Following the outmigration from the reductions, these two distinct dialects of Guarani came into extensive contact for the first time. The vast majority of speakers abandoned the less practical, highly regulated Jesuit variant in favor of the more organic, hybridized Paraguayan dialect. The extreme form of hybridization is known as Jopara. Writing system. Guarani became a written language relatively recently. Its modern alphabet is basically a subset of the Latin script, complemented with 2 diacritics and 6 digraphs. Its orthography is largely phonemic, with letter values mostly similar to those of Spanish. The tilde is used with many letters that are considered part of the alphabet. In the case of NN, it differentiates the palatal nasal from the alveolar nasal, whereas it marks stress nasalization when used over a vowel. A, E, I, O, U, Y. The tilde also marks nasality in the case of G-pogram. used to represent the nasalized velar approximant by combining the velar approximant G with the nasalizing tilde. The letter G per gram, which is unique to this language, was introduced into the orthography relatively recently during the mid-20th century, and there is disagreement over its use. It is not a pre-composed character in Unicode, which can cause typographic inconveniences, such as needing to press delete twice, or imperfect rendering when using computers and fonts that do not properly support the complex layout feature of glyph composition. Only stressed nasal vowels are written as nasal. If an oral vowel is stressed, and it is not the final syllable, it is marked with an acute accent A-E acute I-O-U-Y. That is, stress falls on the vowel marked as nasalized, if any, else on the accent-marked syllable, and if neither appears, then on the final syllable. For blind people, there is also a Guarani Braille. Phonology. Guarani only allows syllables consisting of a consonant plus a vowel or a vowel alone. Syllables ending in a consonant or two or more consonants together are not possible. This is represented v. Vowels a, e, i, o, u correspond more or less to the Spanish and IPA equivalents, although sometimes the allophones are used more frequently. The grapheme y represents the vowel I. Consonants IPA value is shown. The orthography is shown in angle brackets below. If different, the voiced consonants have oral allophones before oral vowels, and nasal allophones before nasal vowels. The oral allophones of the voiced stops are pre-nasalized. There is also a sequence, nt, a trill, r, and the consonants l, f, and j are not native to Guarani, but come from Spanish. Oral is often pronounced, depending on the dialect, but the nasal allophone is always. The dorsal fricative is in free variation between and g. Gu are approximants, not fricatives, but are sometimes transcribed, as is conventional for Spanish. Gu is also transcribed, which is essentially identical to. All syllables are open, viz. CVV, ending in a vowel. Glottal stop. The glottal stop is only written between vowels, but occurs phonetically before vowel initial words. Because of this, Ayala shows that some words have several glottal stops near each other, which consequently undergo a number of different assimilation techniques. For example, I drink water, AYU is pronounced HAYU. This suggests that even irregular verbs in Guarani are regular underlyingly. There also seems to be some degree of variation between how much the glottal stop is dropped. It is suspected that the glottal stop was not an original phoneme, but that word internal glottal stops are only fossilized compounds where the second component was a vowel initial root. Nasal harmony. Guarani displays an unusual degree of nasal harmony. A nasal syllable consists of a nasal vowel, and if the consonant is voiced, it takes its nasal allophone. If a stressed syllable is nasal, the nasality spreads in both directions until it bumps up against a stressed syllable that is oral. This includes affixes, postpositions, and compounding. Voiceless consonants do not have nasal allophones, but they do not interrupt the spread of nasality. For example, NDO plus WA plus NDU PA plus I, RO plus MBO plus PRA. However, a second stressed syllable with an oral vowel will not become nasalized. IDJ akaraku, akara we, that is, for a word with a single stressed vowel, all voiced segments will be either oral or nasal, while voiceless consonants are unaffected, as in oral maboti versus nasal moti. Grammar. Guarani is a highly agglutinative language, often classified as polysynthetic. It is a fluid S-type active language, and it has been classified as a sixth-class language in Milevsky's typology. It uses subject-verb-object-word order usually, but object-verb when the subject is not specified. The language lacks gender and has no definite article, but due to influence from Spanish, is used as a definite article for singular reference, and lo for plural reference. These are not found in pure Guarani. Nouns Guarani exhibits nominal tense past, expressed with Q, and future, expressed with Ra. For example, Tetaruvyachakue translates to ex-president, while Tetaruvyachera translates to president-elect. The past morpheme Q is often translated as ex, former, abandoned, what was once, or one time. These morphemes can even be combined to express the idea of something that was going to be but didn't end up happening. So for example, Parag is a person who studied to be a priest but didn't actually finish, or rather, the ex-future priest. Note that some nouns use re instead of Q and others use war instead of ra. Pronouns Guarani distinguishes between inclusive and exclusive pronouns of the first person plural. Ikua is a postverbal pronoun. Reflexive pronoun. Ahecha, Ajihecha. Conjugation Guarani stems can be divided into a number of conjugation classes, which are called aerial and chendil, respectively. The names for these classes stem from the names of the prefixes for first-person singular. The aerial conjugation is used to convey that the participant is actively involved, whereas the chendil conjugation is used to convey that the participant is the undergoer. Note that intransitive verbs can take either conjugation. Transitive verbs normally take aerial, but can take chendil for habitual readings. Nouns can also be conjugated, but only as chendil. This conveys a predicative possessive reading. Furthermore, the conjugations vary slightly according to the stem being oral or nasal. Verb root nee, nasal verb. Negation is indicated by a circumfix ni in Guarani. The preverbal portion of the circumfix is nd for oral bases and n for nasal bases. For second-person singular, an epenthetic e is inserted before the base. For first-person plural inclusive, an epenthetic a is inserted. The postverbal portion is re for bases ending in I, and I for all others. However, in spoken Guarani, the re portion of the circumfix is frequently omitted for bases ending in I. The negation can be used in all tenses, but for future or a realize reference, the normal tense marking is replaced by MOA, resulting in end base MOAI as in end agipomo I won't do it. There are also other negatives, such as ani, yhy, nafaniri, naumba, nanga. Tense and aspect morphemes ramo marks extreme proximity of the action, often translating to just barely ogar eramo, he just barely arrived. Uri marks proximity of the action. Hey ukuri, I just ate. It can also be used after a pronoun, ha jake uri, jpo, and about what happened to me, I was lucky. Vakue indicates a fact that occurred long ago and asserts that it's really truth. Okanivakue, she went missing a long time ago. Rae tells that the speaker was doubtful before but he's sure at the moment he speaks. Nde rejo garapitata amambari piahu, so then you bought a new television after all. Raka expresses the uncertainty of a perfect aspect fact. Pipe go Raka Asuncion P. I think you lived in Asuncion for a while. Nevertheless, nowadays this morpheme has lost some of its meaning, having a correspondence with ra in Vakue. The verb form without suffixes at all is a present somewhat aorist. Upera res rehomombiri, the day you got out and you went far. Ta is a future of immediate happening. It's also used as authoritarian imperative. Ujitagait, she'll come back soon. Mard has the meaning of already. Ajapoma, I already did it. These two suffixes can be added together. Ahatama, I'm already going. Vrera indicates something not imminent or something that must be done for social or moral reasons, in this case corresponding to the German modal verb sollen. Pe acuteo yeupova era, that must be done. Ni indicates something that probably will happen or something the speaker imagines that is happening. It correlates in certain way with the subjunctive of Spanish. Matangera ageogu ahe acuten e hogepe. The children are probably coming home now. Kina, ina after nasal words, continual action at the moment of speaking, present and pluperfect, continuous or emphatic. Roger Tapi hina, we're making fire. Che hef hina, it's me. Quote. Vo, it has a subtle difference with hina in which vo indicates not necessarily what's being done at the moment of speaking. Amba apovo, I'm working. Pota indicates proximity immediately before the start of the process. Adjukapota, I'm near the edge in which I will start to kill. Pa indicates emphatically that a process has all finished. Ambo parapa piogaik, I painted the wall completely. This suffix can be joined with mard, making up parma, nand jakura parma nde remumoa. Now we became to know all your thought. Me, customary action in the past. Umi, he used to come a lot. These are unstressed suffixes. Ta, mard, ni, vo, me, so the stress goes upon the last syllable of the verb or the last stressed syllable. Other verbal morphemes she, desiderative suffix, inimawa and use, I want to study. Te, desiderative prefix, athasa I pass, tathasa I would like to pass. Note that te is the underlying form. It is similar to the negative in that it has the same vowel alternations and deletions, depending on the person marker on the verb. Determiners. Spanish loans in Guarani. The close and prolonged contact Spanish and Guarani have experienced has resulted in many Guarani words of Spanish origin. Many of these loans were for things or concepts unknown to the New World prior to Spanish colonization. Examples are seen below. Guarani loans in English. English has adopted a small number of words from Guarani via Portuguese, mostly the names of animals. Jaguar comes from jaguarite and piranha comes from piranha. Other words are agouti from akuti, taper from tapira, asai from awasai, and wara from agara meaning fox. Ipakakwana comes from a homonymous Tupi Guarani name that can be rendered as Ipe kagan, meaning a creeping plant that makes one vomit. The name of Paraguay is itself a Guarani word, as is the name of Uruguay. However, the exact meaning of either place name is up to varied interpretations. Cougar is borrowed from the archaic Portuguese cucarana. The term was either originally derived from the Tupi language Sujuarana, meaning similar to deer, or from the Guarani language term guacuara, while puma comes from the Peruvian Quechua language. Sample text. Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Guarani. Me ma'ivi porarauko yvyria napaitia haretika teko ruvitrenda ha'akatua page guereko. Ha ikitu rupioi curara neteva har neteva. Iporava ha'ivaiva. Tekotiv pahenquesha oiko onandivacuera. Institutions. Ateneo de Lengua y Cultura Guarani. YVY Marae Foundation.